you think the USA is going to shape up over the next, let's say, 4 or 5 years?
I think that first and foremost, it's important to remember that America is an isolated society. I think that when you go to America, you realize many of them are unaware of what's happening in the world, are unaware of the intricacies of foreign policy, and in many cases, they really just don't care. And across my travels in America, I used to think it was a stereotype, but there are a lot of people who you meet who've never left America, or the only place they've been when they left America was Mexico. There is a genuine bubble that exists in America, in that if you were to walk down the aisle of a plane flying from, for example, from Washington to California, you will see half the plane watching CNN and the other half watching Fox News, and whoever is not watching either of them is watching Netflix. There's not really an engagement in terms of what's happening in foreign policy. American politics is ruled by what happens in America, not what happens outside. And foreign policy only affects American public opinion insofar as it affects their own lives. The reason why I start with this is that America could radically change in the next 4 or 5 years for one primary reason. I think that as social media becomes the main source of news, Americans are now exposed to the reality as it is, as opposed to the filter that a lot of these channels used to give them. And we saw it with Gaza, for example, where now we're seeing this wave take place, where the crackdown that we're seeing on students, or the crackdown on social media, is a bid by Zionists in order to recreate the barrier between reality and the Americans. It's the ability to regain the territory, that bridge between reality and the Americans, because social media is given a direct insight into what the world looks like, America's role in it, and just how much America is spending on it. Which is why now one of Trump's biggest issues that he has at this moment in time is that his base are increasingly seeing that Israel has a big role to play in politics. That despite the fact he's talking about America first, he's giving $8 billion to the Israelis in terms of arms, allowing them to continue the genocide and the like. And the reaction of the conservative base, whether it's Tucker Carlson, whether it's Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson described by the New York Times as the most influential right-wing podcaster on the conservative base, is coming out and saying, we need to talk about the influence that these people have on our politics. That's because that bridge has been taken away from the Zionists, and it's been conquered by social media that allows that direct contact. The reason why I say this is, I remember an incident when I was in California. I found myself on a table with MAGA supporters. Don't ask. So I remember it was a young Muslim told me, Sami, would you like to hear what they really think? So I said, yeah, sure, let's go. So I went and I met with them. And he was arguing to me and saying, Sami, conservatives are not becoming pro-Palestinian. Even when they're criticizing Israel, they're not becoming pro-Palestinian. What's happening is that Gaza is demonstrating the extent to which their government is held ransom by foreign interests. That's what's upsetting the Americans. They're looking at their broken healthcare system and saying, why are we giving money abroad when I can't afford healthcare? They're looking at their housing situation and saying, I can't afford housing, but why are we giving all this money to a nation that has free healthcare or the like? This is what could radically change the Americans. In the last election, 15 million Americans didn't vote. According to the YouGov poll, at least 30% of those who didn't vote, the reason they didn't vote was because of Gaza. Not because they support the Palestinians, but because Gaza for them demonstrated that these two politicians, Harris and Trump, do not represent me, nor do they represent America. They represent foreign interests. If that is 15 million people who sit out the vote, and the difference in the vote was 3 million, all indications suggest that that polarization between the people and government will only increase. How that plays out in America, whether it becomes civil war, whether it's represented in less people taking part in elections, whether it talks about, increased spotlight on lobbies or the like, is unclear. What is clear is that America is changing, not because of what Trump is doing, but America is changing because people are becoming increasingly aware of what's happening around them. And that's what I think Trump's biggest problem is. Witkoff, the negotiator for the Gaza, between the Israelis and the Hamas. So Witkoff gave an interview with Tucker Carlson. And in it, Witkoff is describing the challenges of fighting the lobby, the challenges of trying to bring the parties together. We saw Adam Bola, the envoy, saying that he's talking directly to Hamas, that he's talking directly to the groups, and that he said, they're not bad guys, they're not guys with horns. And when he was asked, but isn't Israel upset about it? He said, we are Americans who look for American interests. We're not an agent of Israel. Something unprecedented. And he said this on Fox News. The reason why I'm saying this is, this shift in public opinion is what leads to Trump's knee-jerk reaction, ceasefire, genocide, peace talk, genocide, and the like. All indications are that if these tariffs don't bring the economic benefit that Trump wants for the Americans, it's hard to imagine the Americans taking it lying down. And it's harder to imagine the Americans staying quiet when every day on their social media, they're seeing where their tax dollars are going instead. They're seeing that we're saying that we're America first, but we're actually Israel first, or we're actually donors first, or actually billionaires first. And that showed in the elections. Gaza swung the election in those 6 swing states. In the next election, it may not be Gaza or Palestine. It may be the realization that America doesn't belong to Americans. It belongs to foreign interests, and we truly need to take America back. And that might force the reckoning. And we're already seeing increasing voices saying that. It may be a slow process, but what the point is, you asked what will America look like in 4 or 5 years' time. I think if this trend continues, if in 15 or 17 months, 15 months until the election, 15 months until it was the election in November, In 15 months, 15 million Americans sat out the election because of what they discovered on social media. Mathematically, it suggests that in 5 years, more people will have things to say about the elections that might dramatically alter the Americans. And I finish on this point. We often talk about America as if it's been a hegemon for 300, 400 years. America has only been a hegemon, in my opinion, for 30 years. Because after it emerged from 1945, its rival was the Soviet Union. Soviet Union collapsed in the 1990s. Americans struggled to win over the world. In 1990, they became the hegemon. We're now 2025. That's about 35 years. It's a very recent phenomenon that America is a hegemon, which suggests that it's a fragile state of hegemony that can come crashing down as well. It's not a permanent state. And I think if you view American hegemony from this perspective, then the consequences of these tariffs, the consequences of Trump, the consequences of the change in public opinion, the consequences of these economic policies, these questions that are being asked about the renegotiation of the global order, you find these are not new questions. These are questions that have been asked in the same generation 30 years ago, which implies that a lot of change that we don't know or we can't imagine will happen could happen in the next 5 years. And I think, as you said earlier, it's about not about what will happen, but more about when it happens. Are you ready to take advantage of those opportunities? And I think that's why organizations like yours and others, they're engaged in talking about how to take advantage of these opportunities. And only Allah knows what will happen next.